This is going to be a review of practically all of the small wheel bicycle models I have been recommending on this channel. I did a video along these lines several years ago, and some of the recommendations have actually changed. You can click on the link below and go into my shopping page and see all of these bikes. I have a separate section just for the bikes, and so all you need to do is click and you go straight to what I'm recommending. Now, to make this list, a bicycle would have to have top-end engineering, excellent reliability and durability, and a design that looks great today and would look great even 50 years from now. So let's get into it. At the very bottom of the pile, if you're just getting into elite biking and you want something that's very compact, something that can be converted into a shopping cart at the grocery store, then the Brompton steel frame is still a good bet, and that is the cheapest way you can get into this field. The cheapest bike they sell is actually a 3-speed, and it's less than $1,200. I would say on the long run, you're probably going to upgrade everything, the gears, possibly the brakes, even the wheels in some cases, but this is a good start. The rest of what Brompton makes, I'm not that crazy about. I don't recommend the electric. I think an electric kit installed for what you're buying is a much better way to go. Consider that if you buy this basic model, 3-speed, $1,200, instead of spending all this money on this severely underpowered and speed limited option, you can just spend an extra $1,000, and for $2,200 you would get more speed and more performance, plus the ability to remove the electric in case you need to travel or you need to go back to a lighter weight instead of spending $3,700. Also, they are now making various kinds of titanium bikes. They are really expensive. They are approaching $6,000. They're not exactly superbly designed. The modernist new forks just don't go with the classic bicycle frame, and even the classical bicycle frame has been kind of meddled with. I would have preferred them to stick to the kind of smaller tube cross section if possible. And then there were all these problems with the gears. They released a 4-speed that many people did not like, even those who are willing to pay $6,000 for a bicycle. And now they have a 12-speed, but the 12-speed is heavy and overly complicated. So the only Brompton I recommend is the original basic entry-level steel frame. This is the one that was designed decades ago, and it's still probably the greatest of the super compact small wheel bikes that you can buy. Now, if you want to go really lightweight, you can certainly electrify it. I mentioned that already. But also, if you're interested in lightweight, you can just buy this, and you can get something like this. Now, obviously, the Vostok is a very fancy upgrade. It gives you everything. You have standard sized width, the front and rear. You have an absolutely gorgeous front fork. Looks way better than the new Brompton fork. And you can fit any standard size hub gear or whatever you want into it. And there are holes here, so you can even use a cheap regular caliper brake if that's what you want. And there are even cheaper options. I'm just showing you the very best that is out there. The Vostok has been around for a while, and I don't know if they make anything new at this point, but they have some beautiful stuff that's still floating around on the internet. Some dealers have them. Look, if you bought the entry-level thing, $1,200 plus $2,000 for a set like this, you would be up to $3,200. Still roughly half the price of what a new titanium Brompton would cost you. And of course, you're not going to get down to 18 pounds doing this, because you still have your steel centerpiece. The top tube is still steel, but you can upgrade. You have plenty of money left. You can get the latest and greatest wheels excellent gearing, any kind of lightweight gearing you want to get, there's plenty of money. So I still recommend that you get into Brompton at the entry level and then upgrade moving forward. If you want a bit more performance, you want to step up, and you don't mind the fold that is a little bit more awkward, here is the Birdy. This is the classic version and the cheapest way to get into Birdy. This is a bicycle I owned for 12 years. I can only say good things about it. It's super reliable. It cost about almost $2,000 to get in, so it's definitely more money than the Brompton. But it has standard sized width, rear and front, so you can put in the typical wheel hubs that you would use for a full-sized bicycle. Same thing with the gearing. You have really unlimited options with the gearing. The brakes are suspended on the two sides. They are not caliper brakes, which means you can put in much wider tires. You can go on the Brompton. The biggest tire I have been able to install is the 1.5. This Birdy is going to take a 2-inch wide tire, which opens up the possibility for the magnificent Schwalbe Big Apple. The only thing I would upgrade would be this cheap elastomer. There are much better shocks that are available. They're not cheap in general. Birdy is not as cheap as the Brompton. And look at the color options. You have some really nice colors, even dual color. And some of these metallic grayish looking things like this one. And this blue is phenomenal. I think it's a beautiful color. Just a beautiful bicycle. Now, Birdy makes a very wide range of models. And I've been showing you the Classic, which is a tubular design. But they also sell a roll-off, which is an all German masterpiece. It has the roll-off in the rear, this one, this gear. This should allow you to take any uphill, to tackle any uphill without having to suffer too much. And then you can come downhill pedaling at 40 miles an hour if you so wish. You get everything already pre-installed. The roll-off is a pretty complex system. You have ergonomic grips. This is a monocoque frame. Not the best fold, not as compact as the Brompton, and you're definitely not going to take this into the supermarket with a front bag and shop around. But you can put it into the typical basket, the larger carts that are available. So it's still a compact bike, but much more performance oriented than any of the Bromptons. And of course, you are getting hydraulic disc brakes, everything very precisely installed, brand name products. You are still getting this cheap elastomer, which I hate, that you have to replace. There are shocks available for the front as well. I never needed them. If you want to be a perfectionist, you can get them, but they are not absolutely necessary. This front suspension is phenomenal because the front of the bike, instead of hopping up and down as you hit the bumps, converts those bumps into an almost vertical pressure. So you don't really, there's really not much of a dive. There's no up and down, or not much as you ride. And of course the finish is beautiful as usual. Some of the colors are amazing. I do not like them all, but some of them are really nice. I think this light blue is smashing. And you get some dual tone 2-color designs as well. Now for the Brompton, you can also pay extra money to get the colors that you want, to get a really nice paint job, and that is the one thing I would actually recommend for you to do. Because repainting an existing frame is nearly impossible at a decent cost. It would be very expensive. You would have to disassemble the whole thing, take it to a professional shop, reassemble, reinstall everything. It would cost as much as the bicycle, if not more. So these are absolutely gorgeous frames, and the variety available with these upper end models is really jaw-dropping. Look at this color. It's an amazing, beautiful color. So this is the Birdy if you want more. Obviously the roll-off is a top of the line version, so it costs close to $6,000, it's still not any more money than the higher end Bromptons, and it gives you so much. Now for ultralight, as I mentioned, I'm no longer endorsing the Brompton's titanium frame. Here is a much better ultralight frame that goes way beyond or way below 20 pound, I would say. The price is not cheap. These are British pounds, so in US dollars you're looking at 5,000. This is the single speed model. But if you look at the weight, this is about 14 pounds, 14 and a half pounds. This is one of the lightest bicycles I've ever seen. And in my opinion, if you want to get into ultralight, you should go with a single speed, because anything you add to it, including the mud guards, is just going to add more weight. The whole point of getting an ultralight is just to be as light as possible. Maybe if you have to have a commute and you're okay with one speed, then you could add some mud guards. In this case, they would have to be custom mud guards, because this company does not sell those. The wheel size is actually the same as the Brompton. This is a 16.5 inch setup, and look at the wheels. You are getting spokeless carbon wheels. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful bicycle. And this is actually not titanium. They have switched to some sort of an organic fiber to make the top tube, and it has no brake. So if you look at the bike as a whole, the top part, the steering tube folds down, and this the seat post collapses, and you can fold the rear wheel under. But there is no other fold. There is no brake in the frame. There are no hinges. So unlike with the Brompton, where you have to deal with several hinges, this one is clean as can be, but still folds to a pretty compact shape. What it does is it folds into something that's a little wider and maybe taller than the Brompton, but extremely thin. Very, very thin design. And you have a few color options, really not many. I think the yellow black just looks cool enough. Now they also make multi-speed. There's also a belt drive. There is also even an electric version, just like the Brompton, but much more compact, much more neat. So here is your belt drive, and you have multi-speed, so you get hub gear installed, something that does not fit the Brompton. So the width is a little bit improved over that. And the electric is a low-speed electric support system that packs everything, including the batteries, into the hub. Again, this adds a lot of weight to the bike, so the whole point of getting this bike is to be lightweight, but whatever. If you look at the price, it's going to be more than what you pay for the Brompton, although you have to compare it to the titanium electrics, which Brompton is also coming out with. They are relatively recent. I'm not sure why anybody would want to spend extra money on an ultralight and then put a heavy battery on it, but this is up to the customer. Apparently there is a market for it. The king of all small wheel bikes, and frankly all upright bicycles, remains the Moulton. And these models can go as low as $3,000 for something very simple, or as much as $20,000 for going all out. I have a separate video about the current Moulton range as of 2024. I'm not going to repeat that, but the space frame, the rigidness that you get from it, the ability to separate the two, so even with a 25-pound bicycle, you can separate them into 13-pound halves and easily carry them up the steps, get them into revolving doors, elevators, put them into cars. It's a brilliant and yet very high performance option, because you still retain the rigidness of the space frame steel structure, which has never been beaten by anybody else. The speed record established by this company back in the 1980s, which is above 50 miles an hour, has not been beaten by anybody else. not even by the latest full-sized racing bikes. And of course there are many variations. You can get kind of a mountain bike sort of a setup. The suspension is the best in the business. It does dive, so it doesn't have that extraordinary engineering of the Birdy's front, but the wheels are bigger. These are 20-inch wheels. Some of the models can take tires that are over 2 inches wide, so it's still a very comfortable ride. In the rear especially, this rear suspension is much better than anything we have seen so far. I should track back a little bit and mention that the Hummingbird has absolutely no suspension. So they have worked hard to reduce the weight by removing everything that could have been removed. So just be ready for that and keep that in mind. The Moulton is the king and remains the king for now. Now for the electrics, Riese und Müller, the company that makes the Birdy bicycle, they tried to make an electric version of it. It did not sell well. I actually thought it was a pretty poorly thought out product. So they created this new compact bike, the Tinker, and this used to be available in a high performance version that's no longer being sold. There is a speed lock on the bike and it is an expensive bike. This is not in US dollars, so don't get scared. It's a beautifully made bicycle, pretty low center of gravity. You get a belt drive, center drive with excellent torque, 20-inch wheels. You can get, in fact, the stock tires as you get the bike already 2 inches wide. So you get lots of comfort. You get a little bit of a seat suspension as well. I actually would prefer a larger suspension system here in the back. And it's not foldable, but you can collapse this seat post. You can fold down the steering column, and you might just be able to get into a revolving door. And at least in the elevator, you're not going to give people too much of a headache. Very nicely put together, all high quality components throughout. And it already has some connected lights as well. So there are centrally powered lights front and rear. I actually do not mind running my lights off of a separate battery just in case something would happen to the main system, but this is very convenient. So this is one electric that I am recommending. And then there's this English design. GoCycle was started up by a man who used to do research and engineering for top-end supercars in Britain, and then he started up this company. You get a monocoque frame. Much of the frame is actually not made of titanium. They are using a composite of different materials, carbon fiber, whatever. It's fairly lightweight. You have batteries integrated into the frame. And you can see the prices right here. Not much more than what you would be paying for a Brompton. You are getting a somewhat larger bicycle than a Brompton. You can actually attach bags to it, and you can now fold it. So these guys are actually listening to their audience, and this is the folded version. This bike was not originally folded. Again, the wheels are spokeless, just like on the Hummingbird that we saw. You get disc brakes. I'm not sure if they are hydraulic. They might be mechanical. You have a little bit of suspension, but only in the rear, not in the front. So if you want something out of the box for electric, I think this is a very decent choice. Integrated lighting. It's foldable. It's actually pretty neat fold. I mean, you could just lift up this part and roll on the 20-inch wheels, which is way better than using the teeny tiny rollers on the Brompton. Not a shopping bike, mind you, but a very well designed bike. Suspended only from one side, front and rear, so you can replace the flats without ever having to remove the wheel. How comfortable is that? And there are some crazy combinations of this bike. Color options, and there is not even a cargo version. I must say the cargo is pretty good looking. It's kind of odd looking compared to the other cargo bikes. And this is a new model I have not yet reviewed this, but it certainly looks good. I'm not sure where the motor is located. Ideally for a cargo, I would prefer a center drive. Definitely not a front wheel drive, because there is so much weight that you have to carry. So I have not reviewed this model yet. I cannot comment on it in detail, but it looks good, and the bike in this company is overall a solid company. One old company that's been around forever, which I have been supporting for cargo bikes, is the Bike Friday. The neat aspect of this bike is that it can carry quite a lot, and it's not that expensive for a purely mechanical version. So it allows you to put your own electric upgrade or electric kit onto the bike, which is actually my preference, because if I install the electric kit, then I can get a kit that has no limitation, no power or speed limits. It's actually supposed to be foldable, but look at how it folds. I mean, or separable. Not the best. Not the best, but it's a very sturdy bike. And this company works by you placing an order and communicating with them directly and telling them what you want. And they actually custom fabricate each and every piece for you. You can order any kind of configuration you want, any kind of brakes, whatever, the colors, you can choose the color. And it does have a kind of space frame looking structure, at least in the rear. And if you see it in real life, it actually looks better. The rest of the Bike Fridays I don't recommend. They are okay bikes, but not very beautiful. And even with this new version, I'm not crazy about this lower tube that they added. But what can we do? It's still an excellent choice if you want to add your own electric kit, or if you don't want to bother with electric. People have been riding cargo bikes for decades without an electric kit, so it's not an absolute necessity. Now Tern, I would give Tern's bikes an honorable mention. They are not handmade, and they do not have the timeless design that I typically like, but they make some really solid cargo bikes, and there's not much competition on the market. Look at the paint job, it is really nice. You get hydraulic discs. You even have a 2 battery configuration on some of these bikes, not all of them, and you get Bosch center drive, which is about as good as it can get. Gives you lots of torque, so you can go uphill no problem at all. And they have many models to choose from. However, this is a mass-produced bike, so if the computer tells them that it's not profitable anymore, they will just pull it. So that's the downside of buying from Tern. And then there is the Vello. Vello is an Austrian company. It's been around for a while, and they make a ton of all kinds of different bikes. The quality is pretty good, but there are problems with the design and even some of the engineering and awkward fold I do not like. But they came out with these cargo bikes recently, and I'm showing you a titanium version. This is the only titanium cargo bike I have ever seen. You get the 20-inch wheels, very nice design, the most attractive design I'm looking at so far. 2 battery design if you so wish. Center drive. I don't think this is a Bosch. And but a decent center drive setup and belt drive, so it's very clean. No suspension, unfortunately, which I think anybody would want on a cargo bike, but the price is high enough as it is, and I guess if I bought it, I would just replace the seat post with a suspension seat post, something like what I have on my Birdy. Very nice bicycle. I mean, this is a gorgeous bike. And at first I kind of frowned upon using titanium for a cargo bike, but when you actually count the pounds, it makes a difference. It does make a difference, and they give you some nice higher wattage as well. Unfortunately, all of these bikes are speed limited. You cannot easily remove the speed limitation. That's why I'm kind of tilting toward the Bike Friday if I want to have an electric cargo. But on the other hand, this is perfect out of the box and looks way better than the Bike Friday. I mean, this is just a beautiful design. So kudos to Vello in Austria. Now moving on to the recumbents, I'm going to show you one of the comfort recumbents. There are many long wheel comfort recumbents made, but this is the most attractive looking. It comes in many colors. I'm actually not crazy about this color that we are seeing here, but they have a crappy website, so they are not actually showing you the color, but you can just select them. But check this out, for an extra 200 bucks they will give you whatever color you want, and I think I would want a two-tone with maybe pearl here and black or something like that. The seat is one of the most comfortable seats in the business. You have a larger rear wheel and long wheelbase, so you're pedaling, your crank is before the wheel. So this is a very, very long bicycle, very comfortable as a result of the combination of the comfortable seat, the larger rear wheel, and the long wheelbase. I still would want suspension. So my criticism would be that they still haven't added suspension. Like here, they could add something, maybe even here, or even in the front. But it looks like a dreamboat, like a cruising bike that you could ride all day, all week long, and never get any pains. And I don't think there is any competition for it if you take everything into account, especially the design of it. They called it Bella because Bella means nice or attractive in Italian. If you want something more aggressive for recumbent, I know this seat looks very aggressive, and it is. And this thing goes very fast, a very unique, interesting design. It's available with all kinds of upgrades, including the roll-off aerodynamic rear box, windshield in the front, at least a half a dozen gear combination, all kinds of tires, and this is front-wheel drive. What I would do is, they have much more comfortable options for the seat as well, so you can use it as a kind of a sports touring bike as well. It's lower than the Bacchetta, it is short wheelbase, so it isn't quite as stable or as safe, but it is incredibly fast. And I would probably buy the rear box, the aerodynamic box, and put a battery into it, and put a small electric motor into the rear. Check it out, it has suspension. It is low but not extremely low. So it's not as crazy low as the bikes where you just lie down and all the pressure is applied to your shoulder. Much of the pressure is actually on both the lower and upper back and the hips, as it should be. This is a very small company in Germany, all handmade. A spectacular bike to get. Check this out. This is the foldability. I think this is an extra $500. So it starts at around 3,000 and something, but if you really want to nicely configure it, it's going to go above. It's going to go above $4,000, which still makes it very competitive. I mean, some of the Bromptons cost $6,000, and this is for fast speeds and racing, and even sports touring, I would say. The final piece for these lowriders is the Lightning. Lightning has been around forever, and they have created all kinds of records, and they have been racing for a very long time. The crown jewel is really this P38. It may not look like much, but it goes pretty fast, and you can upgrade it for a full two-wheel velomobile that actually is foldable. You can disassemble it, put this thing into the elevator, and keep the whole ring in your apartment. Is this cheap? Unfortunately not. This kind of versatility and speed is going to cost you about $9,000 for this. So this is one of the more expensive of the recumbents. I'm going to give an honorable mention to HP Velotechnik, not specifically this bike, but any of their bikes. They're actually focusing on tricycles these days, and they do everything electric, upright, lowrider. They are ugly. I would say most of their designs are pretty ugly, but they are incredibly well made and something to look at, especially if you're interested in a trike. moving forward and getting done with the recumbents, I'm going to cover the scooters, the kick scooters. I have one. I've had mine for 18 years. I think everybody should have a kick scooter because shorter trips, hauling groceries, just going within 2 or 3 miles of the house really should not require a car or a $5,000 electric bike. This is very, very light. It has practically no resistance, no traction on concrete, so it goes very fast. But on the other hand, it's kind of dangerous, especially if there is wet weather. I have slipped a few times. I was lucky, but so there is some danger to it. You really have to be cautious when you first start riding it until you get used to it. But it's very light. It's 11-12 pounds, and it folds in less time than a Brompton. It is smaller. It is lighter than any of the Brompton bikes. Then, frankly, even the Hummingbird bike. It is probably the lightest two-wheeler I am reviewing today. So I will just say that, and it lasts forever. Mine has gone for 2 decades, and it's probably going to go for the rest of my life. I never had to replace anything. Some screw came out of here, and then I bought another screw, but that was it. You don't really need to replace it. And there are all kinds of configurations. You can have a wooden deck. This is some other, it's not titanium. It's typically aluminum, magnesium, magnesium deck. So magnesium is a bit stronger than aluminum, but still light. I don't know if it's as light as titanium. And you have the narrow racing decks or something more comfortable. I have seen people even taking little kids on these in Manhattan. You could put, if the deck is wide enough, you could stand back here and put a little kid under 6 years of age up here into the front. Now the only drawback here is that people who are taller and heavier are going to find this ride too fragile. So for those, I recommend the GoPed. I know the website is pretty awful. They have never updated this website. They still has these silly buttons, but this is a sturdier and somewhat larger scooter. It actually has an enormous following. You can buy all kinds of custom upgrades. If you go online, you type in GoPed, you can have all kinds of cool decks and everything. You can have custom paint from the company, and the front brake is much stronger than the one on the Xootr. You have the same kind of step-on rear brake, so it's the same thing, but it's overall larger and sturdier. It has more rolling resistance, so it's not going to speed up as easily as the Xootr, and it's a bit bulkier with the fold. The fold is a bit awkward, I would say, with this brake, but the whole thing is centered around having something very sturdy that a 250-pound adult could ride, and I have seen them riding it. Okay, this is it for this video. I think I have covered everything that I endorse and recommend. And make sure to check out the link below, and then you can actually go to the websites of these manufacturers and see what they have to offer. I'll see you in the next video.